So
It's
you
all a
throw,
social.
yeah, okay. So now there's, instead of, 1 billion euros in the system, there's 1 trillion. When you have 1 trillion the euros in the system, people do things with it. And then what do? They go and spend it. Well, you go to the store, and all of a sudden, instead of 2 customers, there's 100 customers. Because
Right.
now I can afford to buy, those expensive chocolates. Oh, the chocolatier says, nope, sorry. It's no longer €1. It's now 1,000 euros. Well, what do you mean? It was yesterday was, yeah, well, but now I have 100,000 customers for the same product. So, I only can produce 10 of them. So the price is up. That's what happens when you just print. And then you're gonna say, "Whoa, I can't buy my chocolates." Yeah. Then okay, go buy some bread. You go to the bread store. "Well, I can only produce 100 loaves, but all of a
That's
sudden there's
right.
a
There
lot
are
more
limits to that.
people that want to buy the bread. Well, now the bread is worth, instead of 150, the baguette, now it's worth 300 euros.
And that's
That's what
what's good
happens
about
when you
it.
print.
That's right.
So it's
And,
not.
and with
It
that,
might be
gentlemen,
misbelief, but there's consequences. And then you got riots in the street. So then
ooh,
the
riots.
argument
That's
is,
exciting.
oh, but that's the capitalist system. Yeah, okay. Go to Soviet times or any socialist country, and you just print money. It's the same issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Look
we
at
can
Argentina,
only produce
12,000%.
X.
Or where's the other one? Zimbabwe with the you have $1 trillion is
Yeah,
equivalent to
trillion
32
dollars.
cents. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just make believe. Look at them; they're starving out there.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
a difference between starving and starving. Anyway, what we're gonna do for fun, boys? We're gonna start the show.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
Welcome to the Lost Dollar Business Club, where we talk about business, 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 and not just business. We talk about what makes businesses go up and what makes businesses go down. If you're interested in businesses, this is where it is. We talk about the global economy. We talk about global politics. We talk about everything and anything business related that affects your life on a global scale as well as a local scale. And don't miss after the show, Lost and Found. Oh, and we're
Right.
back.
Yes, we
With our
are.
worldwide
So,
audience that's growing every day.
what do you think,
now.
David?
Yeah, David.
Have you reconsidered your thoughts?
Do you like chocolate? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
we're not in chocolates.
No,
Yeah.
I just,
You
still. It's just a social contract, isn't it? We just say, oh, it's worth this and it's worth that, but there's nothing to stop the American government or any government for that matter just saying, right, you know what? Stop all this debt nonsense. We put a line underneath it and we just start again. Simple
Yeah.
as that.
Jubilee. He's talking about an old-fashioned jubilee, John.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, and that's and even the jubilee was only related to individual debt, not corporate
Yeah.
debt, which is very
Yeah,
different.
not government debt,
What
private
difference does
debt.
that?
Non-private.
What difference
Yeah.
does that make? Government,
But-
private.
Yeah, I think that you're just being stubborn. You don't want to see.
No, I'm not
It's-
being stubborn. I just don't understand why. It's because I'll read this thing. You sent the thing about about the US debt, and I'm reading all these words: trillion, squillion, billion, trillion, billion, squillion. Bigger than ever, $1 quillion debt,
Right.
and it just gets bigger and bigger, and it doesn't,
Yes.
and it doesn't change. And you guys go on, happily whistling and passing the parcel to each other. So what difference does the debt make? Nothing. It would appear.
This is why we're having the debate, because and this is why our new coming down the pipe Department of Government Efficiency is a topic of interest, because they're making some DOGE. They're making Elon and his
which isn't a government.
which is not a government, department. It's an advisory committee. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a fun play on words. But the point is, they're making some big claims about how to tackle first the idea that the debt in the United States is unsustainable. It's growing at an unsustainable rate. Because now, what is it? 14% of the expenditures every year is spent on debt service, which is about $82 billion,
right?
Which is a lot of money. And then, but then the other idea is that there's all of this spending that's been happening, especially over the past, you would say, 10 years globally. I mean, the World Economic Forum talks about that countries across the world are dramatically growing their sovereign debt balances. So it's not just the United States that this is happening at. And so the debate is, what do you do about it? And that brings us to what David has been saying,
Nothing,
which is just
nothing. I think
it's just magic, anyway, right?
But who did it? Who this 14% debt, right, that the US have? To whom do they have that debt? To themselves?
No,
They owe money
look,
to-
No.
the
China.
Chinese, China owns around $1 trillion. The Japanese own
you
around
have
a
a-
trillion.
You have a
that
problem
debt.
with the Chinese? Did you just say right?
Don does.
Yeah. And you have Europeans also that have close to $1 trillion too. So let's just say we all of a sudden say, take your model. Oh well, the debt. No, we're no longer paying that debt. Okay. Well,
just what instead of paying
Hey
temperatures,
guys,
we
I
just
just want to correct something so nobody
a
comes on
reset.
later and says we had something wrong. The Japanese, as of today, have $1.1 trillion, or as of April 2024, as they have $1.1 trillion in debt. China has 749 billion. The United Kingdom has 629. Luxembourg has 373, and Canada has 328 billion of our debt.
Yeah.
Other major debt holders are the Cayman Islands, France, Switzerland, Taiwan, and India. Just so we're all
Okay.
clear on
So
what we're talking about.
So you get on a bus and you go to Luxembourg and you say, "Can I have all?" The Luxembourg's not big enough to carry the debt. Physically.
the Luxembourg is just a financial center that
Yeah,
has
it's just
the
a tax
economy.
haven. But here's the thing you have to think
the
about:
Cayman Islands, exactly.
is Musk wants to cut $2 trillion out of the debt, and the statement that he made, which we'll see if he makes it till January 20th, is he said a lot of that should come from defense spending. And I was like, really? Because
Great.
Kennedy said that, and that didn't work out well for him.
What he said was
he wants to take it from defense.
There's
Social
450
Security, and
agencies
Medicare.
out there.
Yeah.
Right? There's 450 agencies out there. Right? There's 3 million federal employees.
2.8. We discovered that. We found out last week.
Okay. I'm just there's tons of waste there. There's
What he said, for example, the example he keeps using is the broadband initiative. That there are expenditures happening that are not producing the things that they intend to produce.
Yeah, he wants to cut somewhere between 50,000 and 750,000 jobs. And Trump signed something called Schedule F before he left his last term, which says that you are now, as a federal employee, an at-will employee.
Yeah.
Biden rescinded the order.
A certain subset. That Schedule F only applies to a certain subset. It just expands.
Trump's going to make it wider. So that's what Elon with that Schedule F and a $2 trillion tax cut is what they're going to work with, I think.
Look,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they start. You got to start somewhere, right? And that's the whole point.
Look who's running the show, guys.
Doesn't matter.
You got Trump. How many times? He's like bankrupt every other week. Elon Musk, go and ask him what a carton of milk costs. He hasn't got.
That's a stupid analogy. What a carton of milk costs. I hate when they ask a politician. I don't know what a carton of milk costs, and I go shopping.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't buy milk.
So what's
that's the dumbest analogy in the world.
No, it's not, because that's the fundamental issue.
Your solution is let's just do nothing and just continue, and let's just go to
well, you either cancel debt or you carry on printing money. What other option do you have?
Look at France. I'll give you an example. If we go on the same path, France, 62% of the economy is government. Government doesn't produce anything. I don't know when people are going to get to the thick skull that the government doesn't produce anything. It just takes and redistributes the assets of the people. If you continue to do that, you end up in the poorhouse, right? So you got to start cutting at some point. Look, the anecdotal evidence, you ask anybody when they deal with the government. I had to take a form so that it need to be stamped that I paid the tax. I go to the government office. This is an anecdotal, story. I was told, go down to the basement. There's a guy there. Guy goes. I take the form. He stamps it. Okay, tax paid. And then Then he said, okay, now you got to go upstairs so that they can report it in the system. So I go upstairs to the second floor and I give the guy, and he puts it in the system. So I asked the guy, hey, why is it that the system doesn't? Well, no, because if we do that, the guy downstairs loses his job.
Yeah.
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 So that's an example of why,
And,
we need to do
so,
this shit.
Right. So you rip out was whatever Mr. Musk is going to do, rips out all the people that are in administration, all the civil servants.
Well, remember, we're talking about
discussed this last week, and he makes them all unemployed. So they're unemployed. So they're not paying any tax. They're not spending. They're not spending any money.
They'll get severance.
I mean, all of these things, look, that's why we have a system of checks and balances, and that's why this is not just all unilaterally happening overnight.
You think?
I do think so.
I think you have a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate that are going to do whatever the leader says. I think they're going to rubber stamp everything through. The only thing that they all convinced them to do is get Matt Gaetz to quit.
No,
that's it.
It's no, because there's a process, and they're gonna go through the process, which is onerous, right? Because it's designed to make any new administration come in that wants to do cuts extremely difficult. And there's all sorts of little rules and regulations that the system has put in. No, it's not that easy. Because if they do, they'll have lawsuits, and so you instead of firing people, you go into lawsuits.
Why didn't the Democrats tell the American public that before Trump came to power? Then
I don't know. I can't speak for the Democrats.
For stupid people. But here's the thing, though.
I mean, if that's the case, everything he's saying,
John, he's loose to lawsuits. So I don't think they care that they have lawsuits. And if they would have lost the election,
take time, and so you can't implement the strategy that you want to implement if you're caught up in years.
If you have a Congress and a Senate that will rubber stamp things for you,
you have to change the law. Yes, okay. If you want to change the law,
there you go. So that's my point. So why won't they just?
There's mechanisms. They're gonna. Do
you think? Do you really think, though? Let me ask you this.
Me and Michael here on the camp that you need to do this, and you two up there.
No, I'm okay with doing it. I'm okay to do it. I've never said no. What I said is, if you listen to everything I've ever said, is I want to see a plan. I want to see how you're going to do it over time, and how this affects the economy, how it affects people, what you're actually going to cut. When Elon Musk said, I'm going to cut Social Security and Medicare, the first thing I said is, great. What about the people that need it? That's an issue. So I want to know what you're going to cut. I don't have a problem if you want to cut defense.
First of all, Social Security is an animal all on its own. It's not part of the budget.
I understand that, but Musk wants to cut things. So my problem is I've got a South African that really, to David's point,
are you racist? Are you racist, Stephen?
Yes, I'm racist. Because one of our other shows is done with a South African. Anyway, we've got a South African that really doesn't have a clue. You're not all right. And so he says all this great stuff, and I'm going to go to the. That's great. He's doing everything to enhance Elon Musk and Elon Musk's companies. He's not doing anything for the American people.
I don't know. I think that's a big assumption to say that he doesn't appreciate living in the country that enabled him to get all of this wealth. I mean, a lot of what he said during the campaign time was that he's doing it because he's concerned about the health of America as a country. Yeah. When you look at the national debt being at $35 trillion, with interest of almost interest at 82 billion or whatever it is. I mean, this is 820 billion. I mean, so these are huge numbers that where he's pointing at, and he's not the only one pointing at it. So the topic of the show was to say, well, what is the function of the national debt, and what are we going to do about it if it's actually holding things back, which is what this camp is saying.
What you're going to do is you're going to ask a non-American to come in who's taken all the benefits of living in the US and saying, come and solve our problem, because
that's fun if they can do it.
Yeah,
I don't care who comes in and solves the problem. I just want them to solve it and have a plan. And what I don't want is I don't want it to be just for a specific few people. And that's where my concern is.
Yeah.
My concern
yeah.
is that it's going to not, trickle down economics. It's going to be trickled like here. And for me, I'm good with that. I go back to what I've said before. If you've got 330 million people in this country, and after we deport 30 million of them, we have 300 million left, right? So now I have 300 million, and we're going to say 30 million of them are doing great. The other 270 million, not so much. I don't need 270 million people one day to wake up and you go, screw this. And then you sort of have a civil unrest, to John's point earlier.
Sure. I don't think anybody wants to have, well, that's an issue. And I guess at the end of the day, it has yet to be seen whether this is going to be a plan that's going to be for all. But we have to acknowledge how the situation, to the present situation, which is that there's already been the greatest wealth transfer in history that's already happened since COVID. So the top 1% already controls, and even smaller, the top 10th of 1% controls untold amounts of wealth. Right. And we're already in a situation where it's been concentrated. So
one of those is Mr. Musk, and he's going to be in charge of cutting costs everywhere else. There's a certain irony in that, do you not think?
Well, it's to help facilitate a healthier economy for the United States. That's the stated goal.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
And about him living in the US, if there was a feather nest somewhere else which suited him better, he'd live there. He couldn't give a monkeys about you lot. But you just love him because he's successful and he's part of the American dream.
Oh no, I don't.
There's a lot of people that don't like him. He lucked in to pay. He came here.
There's a lot of people who do like him.
He was fired from the first couple jobs he had. He lucked into PayPal, and then from PayPal, he took his money and he went over to Tesla and he made it that he was the founder, and he bought them out, and so he could say he's the founder. He did some other things, and that's great. I have no problem with that, but just because you're lucky in a few areas and people have drank the water, that doesn't mean you can come in. This is not, and we've said this before, and commentators are saying it as well after, of course, we said it, and it was in the Financial Times. This is not Twitter, and this is not SpaceX, and this is not Tesla. You cannot come in on day one and go, you're all fired because you don't know how to do something.
And they're not doing it. It's an advice. They're going to come up with the exact plan that you're looking for, which is, I
don't know if they're going to come up with the plan I'm looking for, but it'll be interesting to see. And just so everybody, and just to be
Michael, I hope we date stamp today's show because we're
I might be eating my words. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the plan is we don't have a plan.
If basically. The plan is very simple, it's very simple. Every agency, head we'll have to look at the agency and say you have to recommend cuts. You have to look at your entire organization and tell us why it is that the services you're providing cost X and you're doing it with X.
Okay, so that's going to happen.
So that's all the turkeys voting for Christmas then, is it? That's the way that works.
Yeah. That's not happening, John.
Who's going to do that? You need a hatchet man. You need somebody from the outside to come and do it. But the thing is, after you cut away everything and all these people no longer have a job and all the departments are running clockwork, to Stephen's point earlier on and what he's made on a few other shows,
take a look at
what's happening to those 200, 300
about 20 years
million
ago,
people.
25 years ago. And just look at Milton Friedman's, in one of his interviews he did, and he was asked, what government agencies or ministries do we need? And they went down the list. He said, no. He cut 50% of them. It's not like this is make believe. It's well established.
Well, I'm looking from the outside. I see that you've got a federal government and you've got state governments.
Yeah.
Right. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
So you've already got two layers. So you really only need one. So which one are you going to rip out? You're going to rip out.
No. First of all,
that's not true. Run it all from one government department. from the
in
top.
your in your world that's burning, to hell, right? You got the federal government, which is the bureaucrats in Brussels, and you got the local boys in each of your own countries. Right? Which one are you going to eliminate? Okay, you should eliminate the bureaucrats because they're fucking you big time with regulations. In Germany,
You see, but the thing about the
Germany is
bureaucrats is,
deindustrializing, and they pay,
Right.
over 35% of the European budget.
Right.
I mean, and what the hell are you doing? Nothing. You just
yes,
bureaucrats
we
do
are.
nothing.
Yes, we are. We're all lining
Right.
up and pulling our trousers down and waiting to get shafted. That's what's
Yeah,
happening at the moment.
yeah.
Hence why he needs that chocolate that you spoke about earlier, John.
Yeah.
I mean, so that the U.S. is even trying to reduce, the size of the federal government is a worthy endeavor. Whether you disagree who the people are that are suggesting, the process, well, okay,
Yeah,
you can
well,
do that, but to just
call
sit
me-
and do
you
nothing
know,
like in Europe,
call me a
is
historian, but
idiocy.
it would appear that
It's
virtually
it's idiocy.
every American president has come up with the same old song, and it's just
Not
the same.
really.
And
No,
no,
Biden
they
didn't.
No,
Biden, no, that's not true. Biden didn't try to cut the government.
No.
Trump at least said yes. I don't think Clinton cut it, but we had a balanced budget, which was, I think, the last time we had a balanced budget because we all got checks then. No one's really said, let's cut the government. This is the first time, I think, that someone's like, we're going to do something. So I give them credit in this new century.
There was, Reagan did a serious reevaluation of what the
Yeah.
government needed to do, but I mean, he didn't actually do a lot of that ultimately, and I think in part it's because if you look at the way that it's being done now, it's saying let's have an outside body advise the president's office on what needs to be cut, as opposed to trying to do it from the inside.
Right. Listen, I'm hoping he can do the job. Like, I think, having worked in tech, I see that everything's inflated. So what he did at Twitter, I'm okay with that. I don't really care. What I do care about, though, now you're messing with a country. So I'm glad you have an advisory that board that's named after your coin, and your coin, I think yesterday was up like 30%. Congratulations. But at the end of the day, which they really need to
Not
come
his
up with
coin,
something
by the
better.
way.
Dodgy?
It's not his
It's
coin.
not his coin.
Yeah,
No,
it's close
he
enough
has
for
no
better
coin.
and
He
more.
doesn't need a coin.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, yeah, he just wants to
He
pile it on.
all your coins, mate.
But-
That's what.
But my point is, at the end of the day, come up with a plan or not. But what's going to end up happening is Trump already said what he wants to do. He just needs a guy to come in and do it. So if it fails, he blames it on Elon. Remember, because Trump's going to be like, I just do that. And he's like, okay. And they're going to go, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, we love the recommendations. We're going to do everything that's in this plan. Let's just assume, because Trump doesn't read, right? That's the joke. He doesn't read it. He goes, yeah, let's just do everything that's in here. So whether it's from the left, the right, the middle, blah, 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 they're all going to complain or how wonderful it is. And we're going to do it. If it backfires, all he's going to say, well, that's Elon's fault. Because Elon suggested it and we followed Elon, and Elon's the richest man in the world, and Elon doesn't care. So what I'm saying is, you got to have some adults in the room, that read it and go, this makes a lot of sense. Can we tweak this? This is not good. Let's tweak. And you still get what you want, but we have some adults in the room other than, the billionaire who's like, I just want to get rid of everything and I'm trying to save America, which he's just trying to put more stuff into his companies.
I don't know if it was, the ex-OMB head that said this, but 1/3 of the employees do nothing.
That's fine. Get rid of them.
1/3 of the employees do something, and
Right.
1/3 do something. So there's plenty of room to cut here, and it won't affect services. And 450 agencies. 450 agencies. We're
Right.
doing 2 agencies per year. I mean, we don't need that. We don't need it.
Oh, John, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I make sure that the plan is a valid plan, not I'm coming in tomorrow to Twitter and I'm firing 85% of my staff.
Well, actually, that's not a very good analogy, because it actually ultimately ended in the survival of X. And
they're still losing money. The only reason they're making money now is because everybody's sucking up to Elon because he's Trump's best friend.
Quality of service was maintained despite removing 80% of the employees.
Yeah.
But one of the aspects of the plan that needs to be thought about is something that Congressman Scott Perry was talking about, which is that most federal office buildings, are actually unused. So they say that federal government agencies are using just 12% of the space in their headquarters on average.
Solved your homeless problem, isn't it, in the US?
What's that?
Solved your homeless problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the point is, you could do that. There's a lot of space there that we're paying for as the taxpayers, and those utilization rates are, under 20%.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Musk would like to buy the portfolio and rent them all out.
Yeah, no.
You can't just take a business space and turn it into a residential space. It doesn't.
Why not?
It's very difficult to do and expensive to do that. This is what the commercial office space in New York City was faced with.
You just say, let's do it. Simple as that. I don't know why everybody makes those
Well,
things
I'm
so
talking about
complicated.
physical infrastructure, to actually physically convert an office building into
They've been doing it here because they have the same issues here. All these empty places.
Okay, I mean, maybe I'm not imagining.
If you can't afford to build something new, you need let's say $1 million to build something. That's a stupid amount, $1 million to do something new, or you can convert something for $500,000. Surely that's the way to go. But what else are we going to do? So are they all going to be Walmarts or IKEA, or what's going to happen to all these buildings? They're all going to,
that's the real estate crisis. The coming real estate readjustment is a big debate, which we should probably talk about next time.
Okay, well, in which case the federal government should be ahead of the curve and say, right, we'll turn them all into starter homes for young people, and then
wait. They already converted a mall in Minnesota and they made it into condos, and one did a baseball field. So that's not that tough to convert real estate. So what's the upcoming real estate crisis?
I'm just saying. Well, I mean, if you look at the commercial occupancy rates in major urban areas, they're not doing very well. And the question is, what do you do with all this this empty office space if people generally aren't coming back to the office post pandemic? So I'm not saying there's actually going to be a crisis, but people are talking about the idea that office spaces, commercial spaces, do not have high enough occupancy to maintain it, and the idea that you just kind of kick the can down the road and say, well, there will be, but at some point you've got to do something about it.
If you start reading statistics now, a lot of companies are saying you're coming back to the office.
Oh, because that debate is happening too. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's a debate. I think, listen, unless you really have a wonderful, wonderful staff that you trust, you have to see their faces a couple of times a week. I've done both. I've done hybrid, I've done remote, and I've done in the office. Mm-hmm. I still work 100 hours. I don't care. But some people,
I think everybody's landing on hybrid in general as the more preferred option, where you're doing a few days a week in the office.
I think it depends on the age group of your employees. I think younger employees know, because that work-life balance crap. I think the older employees are like, we work. And
actually, I don't know. There was a couple studies. There were a couple studies that said younger employees, especially ones new to the workforce, want to be in the office because they want the face-to-face mentorship. So I don't know that that's.
No, I was just talking about work. I think work. When it comes to like work, like working over 40 hours, you're looking at the over 45 workforce. Under 45, 40 hours or under, you're looking at everybody under 45 because they don't understand that. They understand that you have to work and not play football. So that's the difference. And a lot of the investment banks are all saying either come back or get fired. Dell here in Austin said to everybody, either come back or don't get promoted, and you probably end up getting fired.
Yeah, but that's a line in the sand that a lot of obviously some companies are doing, but leave it to the people who are building. And I'm biased because I'm one of those in terms of building a remote work biased workforce, in the sense that some organizations can thrive in a remote work scenario, And you need to sort those out. I mean, so it depends on the culture of the company, what the company actually does. And it's not across the board that every company should be remote, of course.
Right.
But the companies that can thrive in a 100% remote workforce while still obviously maintaining culture and productivity,
Right.
I mean, that's happening in certain cases, especially in my industry, in the tech industry. Fine. Startups tend to do that because they have access to resources, human resources that they wouldn't otherwise have.
Right.
So there's I think there's room for all of these models. I think the idea of just blanket saying we're going to go back to pre-pandemic is not reasonable.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I
this
think
is where you get to
what
teach
is
your
reasonable is
employees.
we run an advert then, I think, because that's should
Yeah,
link that
run an
link that
advert.
link that segment together.
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bandicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bandicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club.
I feel like we should be on acid with that commercial. I'm just saying, it's like we're like, let me take some acid or a mushroom or something.
You gotta go see the black hole. Yeah.
Psychedelic.
Yeah.
All right. So,
One. I mean, I just want to put the bow on the debt conversation and just leave it as something for the future that I think we could talk about. Is, when you look at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund,
sure.
and you look at the just the trends of percent of GDP held as central bank debt. Italy is 140%, Japan is 214%, UK is at 100%, which they just got to that, and the United States is at 110%. So the question is, what's really sustainable in the framework of a global economy, and how concerned should average people be? That was the original premise of the show. I think we talked about a lot of different things. But,
we never really stick with our premise. There was an article actually today in
Yeah.
the Financial Times that talked about the global economy and what you were just saying and how it's changing. And is it sustainable? And it depends who you talk to, right? To David's
Right.
point much earlier, print. And in theory, sure, you can do that. And then you have $1 trillion note that's worth 32 cents. And to John's point, no, you've got to tighten the belt. The problem is that we've been a printing society for so long that I don't know, and I'm glad. Listen, Trump's administration wants to come in and tighten the belt. But the question is, does anybody know how to do that? Like, if you told the Defense Department, listen, the $1 trillion we give you every year, you're not getting it anymore. That'll be interesting to see how that goes.
No. That argument just does not hold water. The wonderful example, the government defense, they get raped daily for
contractors, sure.
For just a bag of bolts, instead of costing $2, costs $4,000. There's plenty of the then there's the fact that government employees, like many corporate employees, spend their budget because the money goes away, and they don't want in the next workaround that they say, well, you didn't spend that much, so we're going to cut the budget, and then we cut employees. So there is it's not rocket science. We don't need 20 years of looking at this.
I'm aware, John. I'm just saying. Well, JFK Jr. or whatever, Kennedy coming into the medical side, he's going to streamline, I guess, payments to doctors and try to clean up medical and make it cheaper for pharmaceuticals, everything. So I was like, that's interesting. And vaccines, he's not a vaxxer, so those stocks dropped. But he's like, no, we're going to make medicine affordable, and we're going to make the payments that doctors get streamlined. So the things that they all say, but once again, not a problem. I just want them to, as long as they have a plan that doesn't, put us somewhere worse, I'm good with that. And to the point where the Lockheed or whoever charges you $4,000 for a loo or $50 for a hammer or some crap, then that's the government's job to go after them. And the problem is they won't, because those are their boys. Now, maybe under the Trump administration, they will. They're going to be like, you owe us money. Like you owe us like $70 trillion back from overcharging with interest and penalties, then that's fine. But I agree with you. The fact that these contractors come in and go, a pack of pens that we pick up at Office Max for $4, we're charging you $400. That's like, why aren't they getting prosecuted? Right? They still win their contracts. So to your point, I agree with that. So with all the rhetoric that Mr. Trump and his team is coming with, whether it's Musk, whether it's Kennedy, whether it's whoever, Mrs. McMahon now is going to be the head of Department of Education. This new girl got to becoming the AG instead of the guy that was accused of a whole bunch of stuff.
Ken Bondi, is it?
Yeah, so she
the
was
ex-attorney general of Florida.
That's not saying much. It's like being the ex-attorney general of PS 137. Anyway, my point is that hopefully all these people come in, and is the book that I read about Lincoln called The Band of Thieves. Hopefully they get together and they really, whether they like each other or not like each other, and let's get away from Democrat, Republican, left, right. Let's get to like, we clean up America. If they really can do that, then I'm very impressed. And I don't care who the president is.
That's what I think we're all looking for.
The DOD, once again, 8 years running, has failed a financial audit. Give me a freaking break. They don't even know where the money's going. And you're telling me we can't cut? We can shitloads in every department, and we can cut people.
My vote would be to get in Michael O'Leary, CEO from Aer Lingus, because if anybody knows how to cut money and shave it down to the very bare minimum, says Mr. Leary.
I mean,
he famously said to everybody, do you know that every hotel you go in, you can get free pens? And his senior staff said, yes. He said, that's why we're not issuing any pens in the company. You just walk across the street to your nearest hotel and pick up a handful for yourselves.
That's right.
There you go.
Wow.
So
I'm just saying, so the Trump administration is coming in with, we're going to, I don't want to say a balanced budget, but we're going to cut waste. So the first place you're going to cut waste, DOD. Not saying people, not saying tech. I'm just saying overcharging. Because to John's point earlier, a bag of bolts shouldn't cost $4,000 if it cost you $3 to make it. Out of China is where they're getting it anyway, so it costs free. Because there's child labor, there's some shipping, they put it in a suitcase, it's no big deal. And I'm talking, it comes with the child too. So it's crazy for $4,000. So if that's where they're going to start looking and cutting, kudos to them. But the question is, will they, or is it just the rhetoric? So like I said, I'm hoping the rhetoric is gone now and we really now become, all right, let's go to work. And they do something that's good for the country as a whole, not just a tagline for the 6 o'clock news.
Well, we'll see if the federal system, and the bureaucracy either cooperates or not, and if it doesn't, if the Congress has the balls to actually either change the laws and do something about it to actually implement the recommendations. That's the way But
it's a republic. It's a republic. Everything now. So if they don't have the balls,
there's always little rebels, that don't.
No, I got that. Agree. But think about it though. The Republicans were like, if we were in charge, we would do this, and this, and 6 of these and 7 of those. Okay. And January 20th, boys and girls, you're in charge. So there's no excuse now at all.
You got the same issue in Holland as well.
Yeah, we also like to see, what in the dying days of this government, what they throw in to thwart future changes. Don't think that they're leaving innocently. They're putting all sorts of, new regulations, trying to implement regulations before the end of the administration. Because if the regulation is put through an executive order, boom, we can executive order remove it. But if it's gone through the regulatory process, it'll take 6 months to get rid of that damn thing.
They're not going to put anything through anything because that can't get squat up. They can't get anything approved. They can't even get a parking ticket waived at this point. This administration is dead. So unfortunately,
I don't know. I mean, he just authorized, the administration.
The missile thing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that really quick. So he authorizes us to use ICBMs or Ukraine ICBM against Russia. Russia's like, fine. Now Russia's using their experimental supersonic missiles to the Ukraine. Yeah. So my question now is, kids, before we go to Lost and Found in a couple of minutes, So is this escalating to when the North Koreans are over there because they can watch porn? Is this escalating to a World War III, or is this escalating to a conflict for the region?
I'd like to just interject here because I've been a little bit American bashing today, but I'd like to give my absolute sincere compliments. I think it's called the Air Force Global Strike Command, because when those silos opened in Russia, somebody in the command center in the US must be going, holy something or other, the silos are opening. And it's only when they launched it within less than half a minute that they could see the trajectory of the missile that came out. So hats off to whoever it was in the command center that day, that, kept calm, because somebody who was, seriously, if somebody was a bit wobbly, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. Because
now, wait, is that a lost or a found? No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's a lost dollar for you lot, and a found dollar for me. But no, seriously, seriously.
I agree.
That we were in that framework.
Right.
Doesn't the president have to authorize
a nuclear strike? Yeah, they have to push the little buttons and do stuff, I think. But the point of it is, though, we authorize them to bomb whatever. That's fine. Like enough of the war. And on the return side, they're now using their super hyper duper missiles. So my question now is, what's this going to escalate to? I mean, you have North Korean troops there as well. So you've got that. There's one thing going on in the world. The ICC yesterday issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu. I'm thinking, really, who's going to go arrest the guy? If he never leaves Israel, you know what I mean? So we have all this stuff coming up out.
Well, that's just fun. That's just stupid, because regardless of whether or not he is, that's another issue. Is whether or not he is guilty of all those things. Yeah. But you've got a war still going on in the Middle East, and at least what you're doing now is kind of strangling the possibilities of anybody going to see him, because they'll be blacklisted, world leaders, or him going to see somebody else, because he has this injunction against him, or this court order. Surely it would have made much more sense to at least bring stability into the Middle East and then pursue it. I mean, the Israelis were going to take him to court anyway. So
Trump said to him, "Get it done before get it done, no matter what you have to do before I take office." So he's doing this thing. And the Ukrainian,
the Americans it doesn't make any difference to you lot, because you're not signed up for the ICC anyway.
Yeah, so, that's what I'm saying. So he can come visit whenever he wants, Miami Beach, and hang out with all our people. So what do we think of the Ukraine-Russia thing, though? The Netanyahu thing I just thought was fascinating, but that was it. What do we think about Ukraine-Russia now? With they get to play with?
I think I hope cooler heads prevail, and that escalation is not actually in the cards. But making that move in the last minute to say, we can start doing long range into Russia. That was a provocation, I think.
Yeah, but was the North Korean provocation first?
Not really. Yeah.
Wasn't that a provocation? The North Korean have 1,000 troops going
CIA have said there's 100,000. That's what's been said.
Well, let's not worry what the CIA says. So let's say it's 1,000. For now, it's 1,000. So is that a provocation? North Korea bringing troops to Russia to help fight in the Ukraine war?
Well, I mean, Putin's argument. His argument doesn't stack up, Putin, because he's saying, it's because you're having all these weapons from a NATO country. But
no, I'm asking Michael, because Michael said it was a provocation. It wasn't the North Koreans. It's kind of like who slapped him first? Is that the first slap, or is that?
It's a fair point. Yeah, but I mean, to 1,000 North Korean troops versus long range missiles into a country is. I think I think there's some difference. I'm not a military strategist, but I think there's some difference in what that threat represents.
Right. Or the fact that the Russians invaded the Ukraine first, umpteen years ago. So once again,
they took Crimea back in the day. So
well, there's probably less than 100 missiles anyway. That's the general census. So that's not such a biggie. But it doesn't stack up, because Putin has been, they've just seen, I think there's been satellite imagery, which was reported this morning, of tankers, North Korean tankers, absolutely filled to the gunnels with Russian oil, and he's swapping that for bullets and shells and everything else, and for troops. The Iranians have been supplying him. The Chinese have been supplying him. So his argument doesn't stack up. But we had some
related to lost and found. That's I got a good lost and found for that one.
We had some, for just the last points. We had some loony Russian guy on the radio broadcasting here, and he was saying to everybody in Europe, well, just I hope you've got good memory so you can remember what Christmas looked like, because there won't be one this year.
Oh boy.
So you saying that to who? Do you saying that to the Ukrainian people or Europe as a whole?
Yeah. Well, Europe as a whole, I think, because the Germans are a bit wobbly at the moment, but France and Europe are France and the UK have decided to bolster the Ukrainians, but the Germans are wobbling. So we'll see.
This is the best thing about this planet. It's just 8 billion pussies. That's it. You know what I mean? It literally just everybody's like, I'm gonna, and then when somebody comes up that's a little bigger or stronger, it's like, I'm sorry, you misunderstood what I said. I didn't kick this. Those old ads in the back of the comic books where the guy kicks sand in the guy's face and he builds his body up and he goes, oh, I'm sorry. It literally is that. So right now, it's like Russia and the Ukraine are doing this. It's whoever's going to come up with the next biggest, strongest toy that I think. Then the other's going to be like, "Ooh, I didn't really mean that," type of thing. So this biggest strong.
Well, maybe we should escalate from a technology standpoint.
Huh?
Maybe we should escalate from a technology standpoint, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's. I'm just fascinated. And there's a book I'm going to keep bringing up. It's called The World. I read it a couple of years ago. But if you read it, this is all we do as a civilization. Is we just fight each other. Like there's no kumbaya moments ever. Like if you go back to like the ancient Sumerian test or all this, no one loved each other.
That's projecting what the few who are running the show do versus what the majority who don't really want to participate in it but are forced to participate in it. So
everybody and the rest of the people.
Civilization, is always fighting itself. We're in the least violent period of time in human history, or at least modern human history.
I don't know about that, because if you take all the little skirmishes you have in Africa and all these other countries that people don't know about or don't want to know about because it doesn't really pertain to them, probably not. You probably have just as much. It's just that it's not, listen, if I'm CNN and I'm going to tell you about what's going on in Uganda, you could care less. But I tell you the Russian-Ukraine thing, you're like, really?
You're watching CNN?
No, I don't watch CNN. I watch Bloomberg. Anyway, but I'm just saying, I use that as an example for the audience.
I know.
I mean, but if you read like the FT and these other things, they'll talk about there'll be a sentence. Oh yeah, and by the way, blah 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 blah. Like,
right, right.
Because it's not news, and it really is news if I lived there. But because the world doesn't look at it that way, it's not news. So it's very funny what we pick and choose. The only reason the Ukraine is important is because NATO may have to get involved, and Poland's right there. And Poland's like, hey, we remember 1930. Like, you don't, but we do. So there's this, that's why it becomes this important thing. And the Israeli-Palestinian thing, which really, they're not fighting, it's Hamas and everybody else. That whole thing's been going on since day one, but that's not really true because they really got along until the Catholic Church came along, if you read history. So that's been only going on 500 or 600 years, not forever. So there's this thing where
wait.
No. The Palestinians and Jews lived in harmony until I want to say the 16th or 17th century. There's a whole book on it. I read it, and then at some point it flipped. And then it flipped for whatever reason. We can get into that, but we need a real expert in that. I am not the expert. I just read a history book that some guy wrote who is an expert. That's it. But we do actually need a couple of experts to come on and talk about that. I am not that expert. I can only tell you what the book said.
I'm an expert in lost and found. So shall we do that?
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's go there.
Let's go there.
Ever wonder how millions vanish into thin air, or how a single dollar can make all the difference? Join us on Lost and Found, where we dive into the wild world of financial mysteries. From misplaced fortunes to unexpected windfalls, we unravel the stories of people, companies, organizations, and even governments who've lost and found millions. Lost and Found, because every dollar has a story.
All
We should
right.
change every dollar, every yen, every pound, every euro, everything. We should just
Right.
name
Yeah, we should
all
be
the currencies
inclusive.
in the
We need to
world.
be
That should take
inclusive.
about 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh,
that would be a huge name of the show, wouldn't it? Be the
that would be like,
lost
now we're
yen
going to do lost and
pound.
found. Go take a bathroom break. We'll be back in 15 minutes.
Right.
So, Michael, you
All
said you
right.
had something really cool for us.
I
So we'll
do.
go with you and then Johnny.
It is related to the conflict that's happening in the Ukraine.
Sure.
And there's actually, it turns out, the question is, does the internet actually route around damage when the internet itself is, when things are broken? And you remember
Right.
that there's the allegation that Russia and China cut a couple undersea cables
Yes.
to the internet in the Baltic Sea. And the question for everybody at least in the tech space was, is the internet actually that resilient that can happen and you don't notice a problem? And in fact, the answer is yes. The internet does resolve its problems with very little impact. So as long as you don't cut too many, in this case, there were only two. As long as you don't cut too many, the internet packets still route around traffic with very little latency increases or effects of loss of data. So
unless you're Netflix and you're trying to promote the Jake
that's
Paul
a different story.
and
Yeah,
the internet can't do squat, and all you do is get the little circle goes boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. And here's what's funny.
Apparently, Netflix is not ready for that. Yeah,
they were. In fact, here's what's funny. I read an article. Guy said that downstairs there was like 30 people, and they were all watching the fight. And then when it got to the Tyson fight, all of a sudden it got the reverb. They went up to the kids' room, no problem. Like the kids' room, like on the little laptop, was working fine. And I read a whole bunch of stories like that, and it was funny because I had it on like all my devices, and it's true. One of them, no problem. The others would, I like just because when it actually happened the first 10 minutes into it. So I don't think. Now they have a bigger problem because they're doing football on Christmas for the people that celebrate that pagan holiday, and then they're going to do next year World Wrestling. I think they have World Wrestling, so they're going to have hundreds of millions of people weekly on Netflix.
So is that
and I'm hoping
$1 won or $1 lost on the cable?
On the cable, I think it's. Well, if you're Netflix, it's lost, and from Michael's story, it's won.
Yeah, that's right. That's what you're in.
There you go. Just depends on what side of the fence you're on. Jonathan, what do you have for us today?
So Nigeria, 2 months ago, started turned on the $20 billion refinery.
Okay.
You say, oh, big deal. Yeah, they're a big oil producer, but they don't refine any of the. They haven't refined any of their crude in decades. So they used to produce 2.3 million barrels per day, and they still were importing refined products, which is crazy for a country that such a big oil producer. Now they have the capacity to refine 650,000 barrels a day. The Nigerian oil company, which dominates the production now, can only supply 300,000. So so what has happened is that the government, in 2023 had to because they were subsidizing they were importing refined products, which were quite expensive, and so the government was subsidizing it at the local level. But they were the subsidy was so big, which was about 40% of the total taxes collected, that they were putting out in the fuel subsidy. They eliminated it. So now Nigerians are paying, I don't know, somewhere in the round of $2.30 a gallon, which, it's still quite cheap compared to the U.S., which has.
That's what I pay.
Yeah, well, okay, you pay it then because you have the refineries and oil production close by. So
when I go to the West Coast, they pay $5 a gallon. So it's very nice.
But the government, I guess the refining companies, is up against what they call the oil mafia, and that sort of has controlled had control oil production there for many years, and so we'll see if they can continue to get to that 650,000. Oil production, by the way, in Nigeria has gone from 2.1 million barrels per day to 1.3 million.
Really?
So it's
Sounds like a
John, do
crisis
you know
to
there's
me.
a Nigerian prince he's calling right now, and he's saying that if you give him your bank details, he's going to give you $10 million.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's
Get him
it's
on the
sort of
phone.
like
I want my money back.
it's like a $1 for overall Nigerian economy now. The average user is having to pay more of the real price, which I guess is $1 lost for them, but that's the way it
interesting.
works.
All right,
That's
mine's
it.
Mine's really simple because John's took 7 hours, so mine's going to be like all of 30 seconds. For $12,000, kids, you can change the color of your eyes, and apparently this is a brand new thing that's been out for like a year. And the doctors that are doing it are saying that they are booked solid for years in advance. It was in the Wall Street Journal. So for $12,000, if you don't like your eye color, you can change it.
Is that
What?
a
How
found
do they
dollar
do
or a lot?
Where did I stutter? Through the whole thing. It was
How
very
do they do
concise.
that?
The article was
You
very
have to,
detailed,
you have
very
to tell
cool,
us that
and I was
inside.
like, "Wow, that's interesting." But no, I would not. So if you have $12,000, you don't know what to do with, you can change the color of your eyes apparently. And I'm like, I can just buy colored contacts, and that cost
Right.
me like $100. So this is $12,000. So I was like,
Gene
wow, that's
therapy?
crazy.
Gene therapy, I hope.
I don't know. I just thought like that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And I was like, all right, sure. Yeah, you don't know what to do with your money. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah,
people are dumb.
yeah.
What are you gonna do? All right, here it comes. We're gonna get a whole video, a whole thing. Here it
What do you
comes.
got, David?
How
Here we
should
go,
I?
Dave.
No, obviously, I mean, you may or may not have heard what's happening in Delhi at this time of the year. Enormous smog. A lot of it is traffic related. A lot of it comes from the fields, all the burning. But there's a big problem in Asia. And there's a Dutch company who are now looking for a funding round. And they've been incredibly successful to date. And they are offering a electronic tuk-tuk. So they've been testing it. I think they use it in Florida as well quite a lot. So yeah, it's an absolute winner, I think, because a lot of European cities, and I think it's going to happen in Asia as well, they're going to ban you from the city centre eventually for bringing in all these different vehicles that are chucking out all these exhaust fumes. So this may be a way forward. And it took the old tuk-tuk originally started life. We've got some guy pedaling in front of you. Then it had the wonderfully clean little motorcycle which threw out lots of crap, and you died when you were sitting in the tuk-tuk behind. And now there's not an electric one. So anybody's interested in looking at that any further, the web address is on there as well. And for me, that most definitely is a found dollar.
That's a
Most
piece
agree.
of crap.
Definitely agree.
That's
Definitely
dumb.
Definitely
Please,
agree. Come on.
Pollution, stop it. And then
Tuk-tuks are coming into the future.
And the guys in India just got indicted for bribery and a whole bunch of other stuff. India's not even going to be here next week. It'll be part of the United States. Trump is going to trade whatever he's going to trade some Puerto Rico for Greenland. Puerto Rico, we're going to trade it for India. That's going to be our thing. I'm telling you, that's the way it's going. I can see it now. But this is cute. An e-tuk vehicle emits no exhaust. It'll save 3.5 tons annually. Not one of them. I find that hard to believe. And it has a range of 100 kilometers. So it goes 40 miles. So that's it. Big deal.
Which is all you need for city centres until you charge up again.
Okay.
So,
it operates in Europe, Asia, and the United States. Really, I haven't seen one yet. Portugal, Thailand.
In Florida, they're using it a lot to take a lot of tourists around.
Florida? What, they're taking dead people out of the nursing homes, or they're using it in Florida for?
Yeah. Well, you have to put them in sideways, but they fit. But
oh my God. I love it. All right, boys and girls. Next week, I think our show is in the afternoon because we have a guest.
We do have a guest. And that guest is going to be from the That's from the Texas Municipal League, because we're going to be talking about how municipalities in rural areas are having trouble getting people to work, and obviously people to stay in rural areas. This is a real problem. It was featured in the Wall Street Journal, and we're going to have the Texas Municipal League talk to us about the challenges of rural living and hopefully a plan for resolving that.
So, and that's at 5 o'clock Eastern time next Friday.
Yeah, we're resolving that with the the rural renaissance, obviously. So things are going to change.
But it's 5 o'clock. So our show next week will be live at 5 o'clock Eastern.
That's right, 5 o'clock.
5 p.m., ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to watch it, it's 5 p.m. Eastern. If not, catch the rebroadcast on Saturday or wherever you get your podcasts. Look for Lost Dollar Business Club. That two old farts making noises. So there you go. Anything else, kids, before we run away and go and let the fans go do whatever they usually do on a Friday? I have no idea what they do. So
stay positive, stay cool, and enjoy the winter.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I'd just like to say, get it on, get it in, get down, and get funky.
Look,
all right.